Birdman of Riverdale. Sabrina is walking with her cat and says to never judge a book by its cover. She knows it said that a guy is a huge grouch, but she somehow has faith in his good side. Even Salem's scared by him telling him to get out of here. Her friends play music just outside of the Grump's house, and Salem tries to warn Hot Dog, wasting a ton of my time playing charades, and Hot Dog is bad at understanding him, so he gets slapped. The music sounds nice. I guess Sabrina's too stupid to just brainwash her friends into leaving right away. So tons of time is wasted, and the Grouch tells them to leave. I know how it feels to want to not have to listen to loud noises and want to be left alone. So he's not necessarily evil. Somehow, even one of the Archie gang has faith in his good side. I guess the story will have a so-called twist that the Grouch really does have good in him then, since it foreshadowed it twice. The Archie gang gets hurt by stepping on rakes that were callously left out on the yard. And since Salem went inside the house, Sabrina goes in the house. You'd think Sabrina would just warp Salem home to safety. Jughead runs into another rake. You'd think they'd see the rakes ahead of them and not step on them. But somehow he says they're outnumbered. The Grouch happily holds Salem and says that if he had known Salem was a friend of birds, they'd be friends much sooner. It's out of character for Salem to love birds. He's a cat. The Grouch loves birds and takes care of injured ones. He says she seems like such a nice girl to be hanging around with the people outside, who damage his property trying to climb on it. Sabrina somehow didn't get in trouble for saying to him that you can't judge a book by the cover, when it was obvious she was talking about him. She uses magic to undo the damage they did. Good, I thought it'd remain and they'd get away with it somehow as harmless cartoon slapstick. The Archie gang think they're rescuing Sabrina and saving her life, so they think it's fine to run at a door with a log and bust it down. Sabrina uses magic to replace it with a hose. Hot Dog has the intelligence somehow to turn on the hose and bother them with the geyser below them. Why do they hear Salem yowling when Mr. Flint is asking her when she's going to introduce her friends down there? He sounds nothing like that. A net gets put over his head, and Jughead sees the birds. Sabrina magically brings the birds to a cage and blindfolds them so they won't get upset. We see the Archie gang carrying him tied up. Sabrina would have instantly stopped them with magic, but instead they waste a bunch of time running ahead. She finally uses magic so that they'll run into a room and get locked in it by a door without him. So the Archie gang finds out that Flint was a nice guy after all. And he impresses me by admitting that it is understandable that they thought he was a creep because he does get grouchy. They offer to visit him a lot to help him with his birds. I doubt they'll do that. It's episodic and it seems out of character for them. The story ends with people covered in feathers for some reason. Go figure, this story was about the heavily foreshadowed twist that the guy who didn't like people playing loud music right outside of his house wasn't actually evil. And somehow the reason he has a good first impression of Sabrina is that Salem didn't attack his birds. Apparently. Hoedown Showdown. Sabrina sees a bird outside her window, frantically trying to tell her something as if it has human intelligence somehow. And somehow it talks to her with a voice so annoyingly high that I can't understand him. He begs her to help because someone has a farm, and the cute little animals are gonna lose their homes. He warns her that the Archie gang is gonna come to her and pick her up, but they'll never get all of the harvest harvested alone. I really wish it was explained that a bunch of witches cast spells so that these birds had human intelligence, and could talk to witches in particular. But scientists would have studied their brains and found that out. This is just annoying. Why was the bird so smart that he could talk? Why couldn't the episode have saved time and just had Sabrina be talked to by Archie about what she needed to do? He was coming to her to invite her to the farm anyways. Our time was wasted for a while, and she somehow trusts Salem to stay off her bed without casting a spell on him to ensure that. One of the Archie gang wonders why Sabrina knew that they have to save a farm before they told her about it. And Jughead irritates me by saying to not try to understand a woman. I wish one of them just said, she's probably psychic, but that would lead to a plot by itself. The bad guy with the dumb voice talks creepily looking sad before suddenly celebrating that when the farmer forecloses, it'll all be his. The Archie's gang shows up, and then the guy's not actually happy about that. But he has such a ridiculously evil voice that it's harder to stay invested. He wants to help him get to the poorhouse. Sabrina uses magic so that she can harvest really quickly with baskets. And I like that she says science is amazing before complimenting magic. Reggie harvests corn, and Sabrina zaps up tons of eggs below the chickens right in front of Jughead. The bad guy wants to put dynamite he somehow got in the corn. Overly cartoonish, unrealistic things need to be restricted to the witches. Speaking of that, Archie somehow survives dynamite blowing up in his basket, merely getting soot on his face. Did that really need to be written? And those characters would hear the bad guy saying that this time he'll enjoy it and laughing. Reggie's blamed, and he says he's innocent, and Sabrina believes him, conveniently. He goes out on the tractor as I wonder what the actual farmer's doing. The bad guy makes sure Jughead goes down the hill on something, and it crashes so that he's faced with an angry bull that somehow doesn't do anything against him for seconds on end, until finally knocks him into a pig pen. Why was Reggie invited? The annoying talking bird warns Sabrina about who the bad guy is. She should have simply heard him enjoying his mischief. That'd be faster. The bad guy talks annoyingly and goes into the truck. Sabrina sees him in the produce truck, and he plans on driving it over a cliff. Sabrina uses magic to shrink him, and he somehow blames his diet. The farmer having a southern accent is hard to believe because he's just outside Riverdale, and none of the teens talk like that. Sabrina uses magic so that the truck will fly with a rocket. So Reggie makes it to shipping and receiving and leaves really quickly. The bad guy can't wait to get ownership of the farm, and Reggie shows up with the mortgage money. I'm surprised the bad guy wasn't even trying to hide that he wanted the farm from these teens by the end. Reggie's pretty satisfied at the bad guy losing in the end. I'm just surprised that he even cared enough to go to the farm. I guess he only accompanies his friends when they're helping people because he wants them to think he's not so bad, even though he's actually an evil prankster. I guess he's just with them because he's lonely. This story was about Archie and his friends helping out at a farm because if the farmer doesn't get the mortgage money, someone will take over his farm, and that person outright goes out of his way to try to sabotage their efforts to get the farm, which feels unrealistic and cartoonish. It's most ridiculous when he somehow gets dynamite, and Archie somehow survives it and is fine in the next scene. Sabrina uses magic to foil his plans and make sure the truck gets to the shipping place in time. You'd think Reggie would know the truck was flying because he could see out of the front window. At least Sabrina got away with doing good things again, even if the bad guy's voice was annoying. And so was the voice of that inexplicably talking bird. It should have just been written that Sabrina found out the bad guy was being bad because she saw and heard him. That bird didn't need to be in the plot. It wouldn't even know about the bad guy's desire, let alone know that the farm was going to be foreclosed on. It's annoying, it takes me out of the episode.